Hello, welcome. It is Kim, and I missed you guys last week. I couldn't go live. I was traveling, and then I tried to do it on Wednesday, and then the hotel I was staying at had terrible internet on Wednesday, and it was all crazy. So anyway, coming to you now, full of excuses. I just got this cookbook in the mail. I literally just opened it. I haven't even opened the cover yet. I was just like, what did I get in the mail? I just ordered it. It's a cookbook, the writer of which just passed away. Her name was Sally Smith. And I took a cooking class from Sally Smith when I was maybe 19, maybe 20. And she's not keto. She's what you would call California cuisine. That's what it says here. So Sally Smith actually founded a restaurant called the French Laundry that then Joseph Keller bought, and he turned it into what it is today, the really famous place. But he kept the name and sort of a lot of the ethos. So Sally Smith is like one of the founders of the food, kind of the California cuisine scene up here in Northern California for sure. And so anyway, she had a place called the Apple Farm for years, literally an apple farm. And she would teach cooking classes out of there. It's a really fond memory I have of going to stay at her farm and take a weekend's cooking class. And so I got that cookbook for my mom. So, but fabulous, fabulous experience in my life. And really, I've always been really into food. My best friend in high school, so I live pretty close to a restaurant called Chez Panisse, which is owned by Alice Waters and sort of known one by one kind of a foodie California cuisine kind of foodie place. And so my best friend, like in high school, worked there, right? So it's kind of always been had my fingers in food and or friends with people. And I had a catering business in high school, so always been into food, but not always into healthy food. So there you go. Hey guys, glad to have you on the live. This is what is happening on this Tuesday. I am here in sunny Northern California. I was in Florida, in Orlando for about 5 days. Just got home last night and getting settled in. Yeah, that's what's going on. Hey guys, glad to have you here on the live. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about anything. I'm happily back at home, enjoying. Um, Junior Tolentino. There you go. I can't read. I can't see very well, you guys. I have to figure out how to get my eyesight dialed in better. Anyway, on 2 meals a day, how many grams of fat do I need per day? That's going to totally depend on a lot of factors. So there are three macronutrients, right? There's protein, carbs, and fat. And so the amount of protein you need will scale with your lean body mass. So how much, so you can kind of factor that based on how tall you are or so how much muscle you think you have. And so I usually just say, take your goal weight and then turn that into the number of grams of protein you're going to be eating. So if you want to weigh 150 pounds, it's 150 grams of protein. It's kind of a loose measure. Now, does it have to be quite that high? No, it could be just under that, but that's sort of like, I like that in that neighborhood. It doesn't need to be over that for sure. And then how much and carbs, if you want to be in ketosis, if you want to be keto, those are going to be very low. So for a very athletic man, that might be as high as 50. For a very sedentary woman, that might be as low as 20. And then somewhere in the middle, depending on what your life looks like. And then how much fat to eat just depends on what you want your results to look like. So you want to eat enough fat so that you're not hungry, so that you feel satiated, so that your diet works, that you feel healthy. But you don't necessarily want to eat much more, a lot more than you need if you want to be losing weight right then. So that's going to really scale depending on how your goals look right now. So Suzanne asked, how was the conference? It was really good. It was put on by two wonderful women, Judith and Erica. And it was, I'd never been to Orlando before. It was very tropical and steamy, a lot of humidity there. My hair had so much body, you guys. I have the thinnest hair, and all full, and it was great. Um, I was a little spritzy the whole time though. You get like a glow. And it was super fun to hang out with everybody. Everybody was very enthusiastic. We had a really good time together. My talk was about why we stall. I didn't record it. Somebody asked the question because I'm going to be doing a similar talk at Ken Berry's event in about 5.5 weeks. And that talk is going to be on why we stall and what to do about it. And that talk will be actually recorded and live streamed because the conference is being live streamed. And so I was doing a few things out at this conference to try a couple different avenues. Like, do I want to take it this way? Do I want to take it that way? And since I knew that Ken's talk was being recorded, I didn't bother recording it here because quite honestly, there's only one of me. All right. So yeah, I have to say, as a California girl, I am a little bit partial to California weather. It is pretty good here. We got it pretty darn good here in California. So, but we make up for it with the unaffordable housing prices. So, you can pick like a nice place to live or a nice place to live, if you know what I mean. All right, let's see. Um, Florida human. But there were some lovely little geckos. I love a good gecko. I'm a big fan of the lizards, so it was fun to see the geckos out there. My boyfriend grew up in Panama, so he was not with me on this trip, but I was sending him pictures. He is also a friend of the gecko and humidity. He's okay with humidity more than me. I am a little bit of I'm a wilter. You grow them soft here in California. We've never had to deal with any extreme weather. In my part of California, it's different in different parts of California. It really never gets colder than 50 during the day or hotter than 90. It's just in a very tight window. And 90 is like 5 days a year. It's not, it's like today it says it's a lovely 75, right? And that's really warm for us here. I'm in the cooler part of California. So anyway. All right. So what else? So at the conference, who was there? There was Ken Berry was there. He was the headliner. I guess no, they call it a keynote. If it's a musical act, they call it a headliner. But he was the keynote. Maria Emmerich opened up the conference, and then we had Jonathan Shane talking about like real food. I talked about stalls. There were a bunch of awesome people. In addition, that I'm not going to remember. I'm just remembering the people that I already knew. Dr. Boz was there. We heard from Abby Scott, who's House of Keto. She talked about having her son on keto. So it was a great time, and I was glad to go. I'm really looking forward to Ken's event, Ken and Nisha's event, the Berries, in case you don't know their last name, which will be in. It's sold out in person, but Keto Chow is live streaming it online, so you can buy a ticket. So I think you have to sign up for a ticket that is free. And you can find that, I'm sure, on Ken's site, or drberry.com. I'll find the link and put it in there. If somebody wants to put it into the notes, that'd be awesome. By the way, I'm going live on a platform called StreamYard. So I have some comments coming from Facebook watchers and some comments coming from YouTube watchers. So happy to have you from either location. But if you're curious why you are hearing me answer different questions, maybe than you see in the thread, it's because it's pulling them in together. Ashley was there. Hey, Ashley, nice to see you. Bridget says, I have a question. My ferritin number came back very high, double the highest number on the range. Is this of any concern? Yeah, it probably is of concern, Bridget. Ferritin it has like a thing that it's directly measuring, and then it has a thing that it is sort of measuring. So what ferritin directly measures is iron saturation, right? But it can also be an acute phase reactant. So if your ferritin is high, but your iron is not correspondingly high, that would be an indicator that it's not telling you the saturation of iron is so high, but rather it's reacting to um, your inflammation levels. So you've got something going on. Often that can be, maybe an autoimmune issue, or in some people it is just purely like a reactivity in terms of it being an acute phase reactant. So various things that are going to show inflammation in the body. And so, yeah, I would definitely pay attention to it. If you didn't also get your basic iron labs done, like what is your iron saturation, I would get those done too, so that you can rule it out. If it's in fact that you have very high iron and not sort of marking the fact that you have inflammation issues going on, then I would say you might be a candidate for something like, being able to maybe do some therapeutic blood draws. You might be having a hemochromatosis issue. So I would definitely follow up with your doctor about it, though. I'm not a doctor. I don't even play one on TV. So make sure that you follow up with your doctor on that. Suzanne now likes the dry weather. I hear ya. All right, let's see. David asked, when does the blood lab book on sale? Next week. We just submitted it. So we're good to go pretty soon. Debbie Sue is also a Bay Area girl. Hey, Bay Area. Yeah, the bugs are, I'm not really into the bugs. Loretta lives in Central California. It's a little bit toastier in Central California than it is here on the coast. It's true. Cheryl says sugar is in almost everything, including yogurt. Is there a number that is acceptable? So yeah, so sugar, so carbohydrates. Let's just talk about it this way. Carbohydrates come in a variety of forms. We've got fiber, starch, sugar. What am I forgetting? Fiber, starch, sugar, fiber, starch, sugar. Is that it? That's it. Fiber, starch, and sugar. So those are your options for carbohydrates. So you've got, and then there are things that are called carbohydrates too, like sugar alcohols and stuff like that. I was like, there's something else in there. But, the main sort of find in nature forms of carbohydrates would be found in the form of fibers, sugars, or starches. And any plant, well, yeah, really all foods have some degree of carbohydrate in them. Like meat is going to have very little, like trace carbohydrates. And that it does have a little bit but usually it's so little, it's just rounded out because there's glycogen in the muscle storage, right? That you're eating muscle meat and that animal had glycogen in their muscle, and glycogen is stored glucose for energy, right? And so everything has a little bit of some type of sugar in it. And so, one of my hairs has decided to come to my mouth. And so, yeah. So if you eat broccoli, there's some sugar in there. You eat yogurt, there's some sugar in there, right? Like anything you might eat. And we're just simply trying to balance not getting too much sugar, but starch is equally pretty much the same thing. Fiber as a carbohydrate is a little different. So fiber, uh, I don't do net carbs, but I will say I do acknowledge and support that fiber has a different effect on our blood sugar and our health. And so, if you're somebody that digestively tolerates fiber, which not everyone does, then I'm a supporter of a fibrous diet because they can be very satiating and tasty if you like and can well deal with a higher fiber diet. Um, but I still don't do net carbs. I just say bump up your carbs so that you can include some of the more fibrous foods. Now, not everyone does well on fiber, so but I'm not answering your question directly, am I? I don't really worry about sugar if it's inherent in the food. There's sugar in a tomato. I don't really worry about it. There's sugar in broccoli. Don't really worry about it. There's sugar in yogurt. And in that case, what I just do is try and find a very low carb yogurt. So Fage, as an example, for a serving of yogurt might be 5 total carbs. Now, the grams of sugar are always going to be equal to or less than the grams of total carbs, right? Because sugar is one of the carbs. So in the United States, when we see a nutrition label, there's a line that says total carbohydrates. So in Europe, they do net. Very complicated to me, but in the United States, we have the total. And so if I know the total says something like 5 grams of carbs for the food I'm eating, some of that might be sugar, some of that might be starch, right? But it's 5. I know what the I know what the damage is, right? I know what the total is. Um, I don't really worry about how much of that is coming from some sugars versus some starches. Sometimes I'm happy if more of it is coming from fibers, right? Because those can have less impact. But there is a lot of benefit to yogurt, in my opinion. And so while I don't go for yogurts usually that have a lot of added sugar, because most yogurts do, but like Fage, plain yogurt, or even like a Too Good yogurt. That one is sweetened, but it's non-nutritive sweetener, so it's not added sugar. And they've strained the yogurt in that case, so it has less sugar actually than even the Fage. And the Fage, as an example, like it has a lot of really good stuff for you in there for your gut bacteria. It's super high in protein. So I'm a big yogurt fan. I'm a proponent of yogurt. So do I worry about it? No. But if I look at a yogurt and it's got 27 grams of carbs in a serving of yogurt, you can bet your bottom dollar there's some stuff in there that I probably don't want. So I selectively choose. Did I isn't selectively choose? This is the same word. I am choosy about my yogurts that I eat. So there you go. Nancy has nicely shared the PhD Summit link for everybody, so you can use that if you would like to sign up to watch the live summit. All right. Debbie says, working on getting HDL up, so high density lipoprotein. I haven't gotten brave enough to go to the gym yet, but I'm doing strength training with weights every day at home and swimming 3 times a week. Great way to get started, Debbie. And don't, I mean, you can get a great workout at home. There's no problem with doing home workouts. But I would say if you feel intimidated by the gym, don't. I mean, is there occasionally a jerk at a gym? Sure. There's also occasionally a jerk at the store and the parking lot, and you know what I mean? Like, there's not a higher population of jerks at the gym. In fact, most people at the gym are pretty nice and want you to succeed. So, so I would say, don't feel I mean, it's hard. I'm just like, don't feel intimidated, right? Like, I get it, but if you can get over that thought or feeling, it'll pay off. What do I think about berberine? So berberine is great. I don't know much about berbeриne's effect on HDL. I do hear it has potentially a bit of an effect there. I don't know or understand the mechanism of it. So I don't know that I can answer your question to the degree that you would like your question answered. But exercise is certainly helpful. Some people simply also have kind of a genetic propensity for low HDL. And that is just something that I don't know we can always fix, but you can certainly work towards bumping it up. I have seen people improve that number. Hey, Kat. Hey, guys. Glad you guys are here. Let me see if I missed any questions. All right. No. All right. So, yeah. Oh, Nancy said berberine synergy is a great supplement. It brought down her LDL, her HDL is perfect. All right, there we go. Debbie says, I do think I have a genetic issue with HDL, but I was a little worried it actually went down after going low carb. Interesting. All right, well, definitely something to look at. HDL I have genetically high HDL, so I'm like, I don't know. I never tried to work on it. I have very few things to brag about. I have to brag about my HDL. Yeah. What else is going on? Let's see. Mireya says, can being on keto help with uterine fibroids? Yes. So here's the thing. I had actually a fibroid removed last year or a couple months ago, actually. And wow, I did not realize what was happening. You don't realize how, uh, what that's causing it. I just thought I was that's just the way it was. And they didn't discover the fibroid until a couple months ago. And when we did a little more like looking at it, Um, I developed the fibroid, I think, many, many years ago. And then I just didn't know that was what was going on, and it was causing like heavier periods and some pain. And but I was like, well, it's not unbearable. I think I'm in just the normal realm. I just didn't know that that was not just my body being my body. And then they found this fibroid, and I had it removed. And wow, I'm like, oh, that all the cramps, the heavy bleeding, all that. Oh, that was the fibroid, because now they're super easy. I was like, whoa, I had no idea. Anyway, so I would recommend having them removed if you can. But I understand some people have them cyclically. So one of the things I do think there is a connection between development of fibroids and being metabolically unhealthy. So I'm pretty sure I developed this fibroid a long time ago, because that also correlates with when my periods started getting painful and problematic. And so 'cause I wanted to put that together, except that now I'm like, oh, this is how it was when I was much younger. And so, if you're estrogen dominant, you can have more fibroid issues. And so I would say, uh, sorry, it's a little windy out here. So I do think that you can help them. I don't think you can necessarily get rid of them once they've grown, unless you actually have them removed. But you could potentially make them a little less active, and potentially make them not regrow as fast. That's just my theory. I am not a medical doctor. This is not medical advice. Terry says, y'all listen to this lady. I'm down 154.7 pounds. I won't short you any pounds there, Terry, thanks to her no nonsense methods. It's true. She is down that, but mostly due to Terry's diligence, I would say. I've just given her advice. That's the easy part. Kat says, does calorie intake matter? I asked because a friend of mine recently said she didn't think I eat enough. I'm 58, 5'2", weighing 110 pounds. Yes, calorie intake matters. Yes, I will go on record. I am a calorie supporter. It's like a political party these days, isn't it? Are you pro-calorie or anti-calorie? Um, but I don't think calories mean everything everyone thinks they mean necessarily. However, calories are a unit of measure. They are the only unit of measure we actually have to measure units for food. So calories do matter. They do exist. You can eat too many calories, and you can eat too few calories. Calories, though, are context dependent, which would mean uh, a calorie is a calorie, because it's a unit of measure. That's like saying an inch is an inch, right? Yeah, okay, yeah, a calorie is a calorie, but a calorie of X is not a calorie of Y, right? Just like, I don't know, I'm gonna say something like, I got an analogy. Just like, or I'll say a dollar is a dollar, right? I'll say it that way. But like, what your dollar will buy is different. Like, if I live in California and I have a dollar and I want to buy a house, I just get laughed at, right? But I could buy like I don't know, like an eraser, right? You can spend them in different ways. They do different things. They're worth different amounts, but a dollar is still a dollar. A calorie is still a calorie. It is a unit of measure. However, the effect of different foods on our body are different. So I will say that I do find a lot of my clients are not eating enough. Now, I'm not an idiot who is saying that if you eat more, you will automatically lose weight, and that not eating enough doesn't causes you to gain weight, right? And that's not what I'm saying. But I do, like, I'll give you an example. I have a client, when as soon as I let her out of my sight, so she stops working with me, she starts eating too little and stops losing weight, because she runs out of energy, because she's not feeding her body enough energy to do anything, and she sits around a lot because she's exhausted, because she doesn't have any fuel. She starts eating more. She feels amazing. Starts doing things like going for bike rides and doing things all day and getting really active. And then she starts losing weight again. So I'm not suggesting calories don't count, don't matter, don't anything. I do think some people can absolutely be eating too little. And the other problem with eating too little, other than just energy, right? The energy part is food is how we get all of our nutrients. Get a little bit from the sun, I guess, but we are not a plant. We need to eat things so that we get food in so that we get nutrients. And if we're chronically eating too little, we get malnutrition. And that is bad. So if you're chronically dieting or chronically not eating enough, you will suffer for it. So it's possible you're not eating enough. I don't know enough about what's going on in your life to know if you're not eating enough, but it is totally possible. Um, Nancy said, Nancy, I see your comment. At least I do. Um, Nancy says, my doctor says berberine and ALA will lower A1C. Yeah, berberine acts not in the same way, but somewhat like a metformin in terms of lowering your blood sugar levels. So that can be helpful. Hey, Mindy says, any advice on being keto in a household with a teen with disordered eating bulimia? Feel like I need to stay keto, but also walk around on eggshells about eating a certain way. Now that is definitely a issue, Mindy, and I understand that could be troublesome. So I will say that I think it's important for teens, being a teen, well, not anymore, having been a teen with disordered eating, I think hearing my mom talk negatively about her body was probably the worst thing that happened in my household. Um, which I'm acknowledge I am totally lucky that that was the worst thing. There are many worse things that can happen in your household. Having a mom that doesn't love her body, growing up in a household like that as a daughter can be very damaging. And so, one of the things that I see as being super important is that we don't criticize or talk about our size of our body or the size of other women's bodies, right? Or people, women, men, whatever. But, when we go out in public, we don't say, oh, must be nice to be that thin. We don't say, oh, like I just am like other people's bodies are not my business. I should not be commenting on them unless they've hired me to comment on them. Um, so I think those are really important around children. Um, but in terms of your eating, I think you have to say, well, like, it's not wrong that the foods we choose to eat have impact upon our health. And if your child was choosing to eat all junk food and not any real nutrition, that would be a problem, right? And if you were choosing to eat all junk food and not nutrition, that would also be a problem because there's a distinct difference between play food and real food, right? And food is how we get the proper amount of nutrition in terms of micronutrients and protein and all that. And so eating in a healthful manner, but in a mentally healthy way, I think we can model really good behavior there. I would probably be cautious about weighing and measuring everything, in front of them. Not that would hide it necessarily, but, I'm just trying to think through that. I think modeling, a behavior that you are trying to care for your body, that you are trying to properly nourish your body, you're trying to keep your blood sugar in an appropriate level. I think it really, I think as a parent of a child, I'm not a parent, but I would say if I would put myself in that role, I would think that trying to model a healthy behavior and it's kind of an opportunity for you potentially to work on some of your own thought patterns around food. I don't know that I really answered your question directly. I would maybe talk with their care team, their therapist around how best to model appropriate behavior. I don't think I have maybe a different perspective. I don't think the opposite of bulimia is because binging is part of bulimia. And it's the binge and purge cycle, rather whether that's throwing up or overly exercising. And so modeling a life that does not include binging, does not include emotionally overeating, I think is very healthy. But I also think you have to model that you maybe aren't chronically on a diet, that maybe if you go through periods of eating less, you're also going through periods where you're really nourishing your body. And I think we're all kind of feeling around in the dark on some of this because God knows did not have, I think most of us haven't had great role models around food. I think the underlying thing to remember though is a lot of this is not really about food. It's about a lot of what's underneath emotionally. So, Facebook user says my TSH was 2.64 last year and zero point 0.6 this year. Should I be worried? So I'm going to assume that you're not on medication. Sometimes when we're on if we're on thyroid medicine, our TSH will drop, and being zero point 0.6 is totally fine. Um, Both of those numbers are in range for TSH, though the 2.6 is a little high. And but there are a couple of things that can affect TSH, such as if you'd been fasting a lot, or you had um, fasted around the time of the test for a little too long, or you'd been doing a lot of heavy exercise around the day of the test, then potentially you might see TSH be a little high. Heavy exercise right before you get your blood drawn for a TSH will look like you have a elevated TSH because your body wants more energy, right? You've just used up a lot of energy. It's calling for more. So that can come up sometimes. But okay, no meds. I would just how are you? I would look at how are you feeling. I don't think either of those numbers is like startlingly worrying. The 2.6 is high enough that I would want to investigate it, but then if it was down to zero point 0.6, it would just be something I would continue to run because it's possible if you had a condition like Hashimoto's, which is Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is a autoimmune condition that causes your thyroid to get a little wiggy. Sometimes people will have highs and lows and highs and lows and highs and lows as that thyroid over responds, under responds. And so I might follow up with some of the tests that test for thyroid antibodies. But if you feel fine, I wouldn't really worry about it too much. Neither of those readings are way crazy. But I would continue probably because they're a little bit, one's a little high, one's a little low. I would continue to just check in on it in your annual labs and make sure that you feel good. Um, Shelly says, I need to get serious. All right, Shelly, what do you need to change? What do you need to change in your life? Kat says, interesting about not enough calories related to nutrient deficiency. I do think that is the case. My chiropractor does muscle testing. Recently put me on an enzyme that has zinc and other minerals. All right. Well, yes. I mean, it makes sense, right? If we're only eating 1,000 calories regularly, um, then that's not enough calories for most of us to get all the nutrients we need because you need a certain amount of zinc and you need a certain amount of protein and you need a certain amount of, um, I don't know, everything, thiamine and, niacin, all those things. You need a lot. And it's like, unless you're taking all your calories, like a vitamin pill, right? It like concentrates down. The quality of vitamin pills is often really crappy. But whereas if you're eating a lot of food, well, now it's really easy for you to get all the nutrients you need. And so a lot of people who chronically undereat are very nutrient deficient. So you want to make sure that when you're eating fewer calories, when you're eating less, when you're trying to lose body fat, you really want to make sure the food that you're eating is as nutrient dense as possible so that you're getting as many nutrients. It's like you're playing nutrient Jenga. Yeah. Hey, John, how's it going? I met John in person here this last weekend in Florida. So nice to see you, John. John Laspina. All right. And so, yeah, all that matters. You just don't have a lot of room for fluff, which is part of the reason I would say that, and it's not the only reason, but part of the reason I would say a lot of keto kind of junk food is not super useful in a diet, especially when you're in a calorically restricted period, because there's just not room for them. If you have a small budget, you're not buying the fancy things that have no use in your life, right? You got to concentrate your budget on the things you really need. Rent and heat and a car, right? Like to get to work, right? You need to concentrate on spending in the areas where you really need to spend. And if you don't have a lot of extra budget, you don't have a lot of room for fluff. And so you don't have a lot of room for the sweets and the treats and the junk food because it doesn't deliver the kind of nutrients you need. When you're in more of a surplus, or you have a little more wiggle room, or you exercise a lot, so you have a higher caloric ceiling, you know, well, then you might be able to afford a few more of those things. But I see a lot of people eating a lot of fat bombs, or, fatty coffee or things like that, where, it's not that there is something wrong with these things, but now they're spending most of their budget in places that don't bring good things and don't bring healthy things into their body. Don't bring unhealthy things, but they're not bringing the healthy things we need. And so you got to think about nutrient density as you're eating the foods that you're choosing to eat. And I always feel better when I focus that way. I love a good junk food item as much as the next girl, probably more than the next girl. But I have to make these choices because my budget is only so big. So, who has questions about cooking, eating, fooding? I have news, people. Crazy news. I signed up for a course on exercise physiology because so many people started having, when I started working out, so many people have had questions about exercise physiology and how to exercise and what. I was like, I better get more educated on this because I'm just taking it like I'm a novice newbie here. I better know more about it. So I have signed up for that. Pray for me. Kat says, I also know skin tags are a sign of insulin resistant. I have been keto for 2 years. A1C is 4.6. I noticed small skin tags developing. So, in general, yes, skin tags are a sign of insulin resistance. I will say that there are certain types of dermatological things that happen where we develop little bumps that are not actually skin tags that look a lot like skin tags. I'd say it's pretty unlikely with an A1C of 4.6 that you're significantly insulin resistant. Um, and so, I don't know what your fasting insulin is, but again, with 4.6, it's unlikely that I think it's very high. So I sometimes I have something called KP. I think it's keratosis pilaris, where you get these little bumps on the back of your arm. You can get those little mealy, they're called. It's like it's almost like a zit, but not one that has a open pore. So you'll get like a little whitehead almost that kind of grows under the skin, and those can grow on anywhere on your body, and they can be actually removed. There's just, but they don't have a open pore, so not like a pimple. They won't. Ex- Sorry if I'm gross. They won't like express themselves. You'll just end up with this little lump. And it looks like almost like a little grain of rice under your skin. And so skin tags are a little bit different than that, but sometimes, you can't tell the difference as a non-dermatologist. So, yes, skin tags are absolutely a sign of insulin resistance, but not all little hangy things on your skin are skin tags. So just letting you know. All right. My skin tags fell off. Keto is amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Mindy says the KP runs in the family, also called chicken skin. You know what? I found the best thing for it? Epsom salts. Those really help. I have it worse on one arm than the other, but Epsom salts seem to be the best thing I do for that skin to be healthy. But the KP even got better on keto than it was before keto. But there's still a little bit of a rough feeling sometimes, and a little scrub with Epsom salts can be helpful for that as well. Yeah, so I mean, insulin resistance is definitely a thing. And I think, a lot of my clients, a lot of people really do struggle with insulin resistance. And what can we do? What can we do to improve insulin resistance beyond just going keto and low carb? Exercise is very helpful for insulin resistance. So exercise will help. Um, Eating in a way that you're not overly saturated with sugar and insulin is also very important. Um, Kathy says, I have a lot of those bumps where I sweat, and you have to take a needle and get those out. Yeah, exactly. It feels like sand. Yep. So that is, it's called a mealy, and it is essentially just like your sweat glands, I think. You've got a little bit of oil that gets stuck under the skin and forms a little kernel. And I think it's most related to a whitehead, but again, in a different type of pore, and so they tend not to come out. And yeah, they um they do indeed. You can get them as you're doing. You can get them, removed just by kind of stabbing them. Don't hurt yourself, people. Go if you're not good at that kind of thing, go to a dermatologist. But yeah, they do. But if they grow, they can end up looking very much like a skin tag. A skin tag, though, a true skin tag, there's nothing inside of it, so there's nothing to come out of it. So they would you they're the only way to remove a skin tag is like to cut it off because it's a little hangy skin thing. Welcome to Disgusting Things with Kim Howerton on on Tuesday evening. I am that friend though, you guys, who's if you're like, can you look at this? I'm like, what's happening there? Whatever. We're all human. We all got bodies. All right. So moving on to non-topics of bumps and things like that. What else is happening? I am planning on doing what am I planning on doing? I am planning on doing a reverse diet in the fall after the event in Nashville. So I will be concentrating on increasing my food intake. And so that is something that I'm going to be focusing on coming up into the winter, late fall into the winter. Um, and accompanying that will be an increasing amount of time in the gym. I've fallen off I'm still going to the gym, but I'm not quite as good as intense about it, I should say. Um, this summer with the travel and just me being me, definitely gonna lay it on heavy in the winter as I start my reverse diet and start eating a lot. I was talking with the two crazy ketos. You guys know Joe and Rachel. Love them. Love them. Love them. And we are talking about maybe running some kind of challenge over the winter. Not sure what it looks like yet, but we're talking about it. And so yeah, so those are my winter plans. More food. Those are my winter plans. So gonna be working on eating more food during the reverse, raising my metabolic rate, raising my caloric intake. It's a very challenging thing to do for a lot of us who, our focus has traditionally been on losing weight, and now we're being okay with a little bit of weight gain. Not a lot, but a little, and working on getting better nourished and raising my metabolic rate to kind of come into the home stretch of all the weight I wanted to lose. I'm not doing a BBB challenge. No, not my thing. They'll do it with Ken and Nisha. Um, I've been keto long enough to know, what works for me. And carnivore is not my shtick anymore. I really appreciate the period of time I did carnivore. It definitely healed up some of the gut issues I had. But I love vegetables. So I won't be going back to carnivore for any lengthy period of time. Pam says, I've been keto for over 1 year. I eat a lot of eggs. I'm suspecting an egg allergy. How does an egg allergy present itself? So there's intolerance and then there's true allergy. If you were truly allergic to eggs, you would do things like vomit after you ate eggs, or you would break out in a rash, or those kinds of things. Some people do have a true egg allergy. Like my friend Siobhan Huggins, she would just throw up when she ate eggs. So that was not good. And but then she, did some things and managed to turn it around and turn it into more of an intolerance. Um, but an intolerance can look like a variety of things. It can look like maybe you're a little queasy after you eat eggs, you feel a little fluey, you don't feel energetic, you feel a little brain fog, you notice your digestion's a little off. You might have breakouts or small rashes. Like if it's kind of a minor thing on those, you might just have an intolerance. Generally speaking, if you suspect either an allergy or an intolerance, then I would cut them out of your diet for at least 30 days. And then I would look at reintroducing them. Now, if you feel like it's probably a true allergy, not just an intolerance, I would reintroduce them while in a doctor's care, right? So you can go into a doctor's office and say, I would like to do a, I think I'm allergic to eggs. I have cut eggs out of my diet. I would like to reintroduce eggs, but I would like to do it in a way that if I have anaphylactic shock, which is the what your body having that allergic reaction where you're like your airway closes up, it's bad, right? I want to do so safely. You would do that in the presence of a doctor, so that if you did get into trouble, you could have the medical intervention you need. Now, if you're more like, I just think it's an intolerance, well, then you can reintroduce them in. Then you'll know. Because if you feel really crappy after you reintroduce eggs again, you probably should remove them permanently or at least for a very long time. Then other people say things like, well, I'm fine if I have like one egg a day or like there's an egg in something, but I just can't eat eggs, like multiple eggs in a sitting. So you can see what is true of you. Um, All right. So Mindy says, how frequently do I do a reverse? What are some signs it is time for one? So um, I should have done one a couple months ago. Is a true answer. So it's so I would say not everyone has to do a reverse. Uh, some people very happily never do them. I find them useful in terms of I will often be in a cut or a period of dieting and find, wow, for the amount of activity I do, the amount of calories that I can eat to, or how far I have to drop my calories down to see weight loss, I feel it is lower than it should be for a person of my size. And so, which is most of the time I feel that way because I have been gifted with the metabolism of a fly. I don't know. I don't know how fast a metabolism is on a fly. Not a sloth, a sloth's metabolism. That's what I have, right? So, when I compare caloric intake to other people who, I feel like I probably should be around, it's a very different thing. So not going too long without doing a reverse, maybe once a year, say, might be a good thing for people like me. But and it's going to be anywhere from, you know, well, I'm going to do a reverse and then maintenance. So those are two different things, but they often go together. And I'll probably be doing that for about 6 months. Um, uh, Giving my body a good long period where I'm not trying to lose weight, where I'm trying to bump up my metabolic rate, trying to eat more, trying to use that extra energy to fuel muscle building, then go into some maintenance period, really focus on getting my metabolism healthy and my muscles strong, and then after that point probably go into a cut, which would be somewhere from 6 to 8 to 9 months down the line. So that is sort of what it will look like for me. Some signs that I need to do one, as I said, when I find there's just sort of a growing sense in me that it's time to do this. And I usually, what I'm going to say is it often is a good idea for that to be a time when you're also saying, I'm going to really devote my attention to life in the gym, lifting a lot more weights, really upping my lifting schedule, really working on some fitness goals there. Being able to do that in conjunction with a reverse and some maintenance time is a great thing. I don't do real great in the gym during a cut. I'm tired, I'm sore, I don't have very good recovery. So all of that comes into play. And so I do a lot better in the gym when I'm eating adequate calories. Strange but true. Most people don't do great in the gym when they're in a cut. So anyway, that's what's going to be happening as we head into the fall. All right. All right. A few last questions before we wrap it up for the night. I am here for it. If you want, you let me know what you want me to talk about. Kristen says, I love popping things. I know, right? That's one of the beauties of having like a boyfriend or a girlfriend or somebody in your life that lets you pick at them. They're like little monkeys. My mom always called me that, right? Like monkeys like preen each other. Some part of our ancient brain. I'm glad to be home where my creamy lives. I did not have a creamy on vacation. It was sad. Angela says, just recovered from COVID. Any tips? Yes. I would say just get lots of rest and lots of good nutrition. Take care of yourself. Eat what sounds appropriately healing to you. Bone broth, eggs, good steak, good quality food. Get some vitamin C. Make sure you're getting plenty of sunlight and vitamin D. Just general good health practices. If anyone doesn't know, red peppers have a lot of vitamin C, just so you know. Um, am I going to Nashville for Dr. Berry Summit? Yes, I'll be speaking at the summit. I will be in Nashville with Nurse Cindy, two crazy ketos, Autumn from Keto with Autumn. She and her husband are amazing, so love them. And I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. Anyway, some amazing people. I did meet Mary from Keto Life on tour. I did. She's very tall. She was at Florida. So there was this funny little group of women who were all 5'10", and I'm only 5'9". I didn't quite make it into their club, but she is tall and beautiful and lovely. Yes, I did meet Mary. Kathy says, what things are you going to eat to up your calories? More fat. So when I'm in a cut, I drop the fat. When I'm in a maintenance, I up the fat. My protein is always pretty high. So like if I'm in a cut, I might be eating more like 50 grams of um sorry, I'm reading as I'm talking. I might be eating like 150 grams of protein, 50 grams of carbs. I eat more carbs, people. I've talked about it before, but I do well on a little bit higher carb these days, but all from like leafy greens and some fruit, yogurt, that kind of thing. Um, and maybe 50 to 60 grams of fat, right? That's when I'm trying to lose weight. And then if I'm trying to maintain, it might be more like 150 grams of protein, 50 grams of carbs, and then I just bump up the fat. Maybe I'm eating more like 100 to 120 grams of fat, and then I'll just keep bumping that up during a reverse. What types of fats am I increasing? Asked Mary. Well, generally speaking, what I do is I just choose higher fat meats. So when I'm in a cut, I might be choosing like flank steak or sirloin. When I'm trying to maintain or I'm looking to be in a reverse, I might be making choices like ribeye or New York strip. I'll also use potentially a little more butter, more egg yolks in my eggs, so those kinds of things. It's a pretty easy switch for me at this point. It's just more butter, more cooking oil, less cooking oil, leaner cuts of meat, fattier cuts of meat, make making sauces with, more fat rather than more things like Greek yogurt. Just kind of flip flop the types of choices I make. For me, it all starts with the type of meat I'm eating. So, that's going to set the stage a lot because my diet is very, very meat based. Pretty much almost every meal is centered around either meat or something like yogurt, right? Greek yogurt, a way to get a good amount of protein in my meal because my protein goal is pretty high. And if I don't work on eating an appropriate amount of protein, I will not make my protein goals. So, if I'm eating around 150 grams of protein, that means somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 60 grams of protein per meal, right? And so one might be a little lower, one's a little higher, one might be 30, one might be 60, right? But it's, an average of about 50 grams of protein in each of my 3 meals a day because I don't snack really. So though the creamy desserts have started taking care of my dinner being a lot higher in protein, but in terms of breakfast and lunch, making sure I'm really on the good quality protein sources, and then I just choose to alter where that protein is coming from, to dial in the fat content I want in my day. Angie says, "Do I think there's a benefit to incorporating a serving of beef gelatin each day?" If you're eating things like chicken wings and bone broth where you're getting a good amount of collagen anyway, probably not. I don't think it's going to hurt you. It's not a complete source of protein, so it's not really beneficial for muscle growth or muscle protein synthesis, but I don't think there's a downside. Uh, I don't know that I believe that there's a real high benefit, but there might be a subtle one. That would be the way that I would answer that. Yeah. All right, guys, I think that will be the last question today. We're going to wrap it up for the day. So thank you for joining me. I had a great time with you. Please come back next week. We'll talk about more things. And I hope you're all doing awesome. All right, talk to you guys soon. Bye.